Hey, welcome everybody to an inaugural episode of a new series we're producing here at OC Talk Radio, American Legends, about the legendary cars and the legends who created those cars. And we certainly have, for our first episode, in my mind, one of the bigger, better-known legends in the last decades here. We have with us Bob Lutz. Welcome, sir.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm going to just give you a little bit. We could take half of the show just to read your bio here. But
don't bother.
I'm going to give a couple little overviews just so people know. This is from Wikipedia here. And it says, let me go pull this up. It says, Bob Lutz is a Swiss-American auto exec, served as a top leader of all three of the big three auto manufacturers, having been in succession executive vice president and board member of Ford, president and then vice president and board member of Chrysler, and vice chairman of General Motors. In addition to working overseas in Europe, you worked for Opel and BMW. I think you were, the director of sales or something for BMW?
Yeah, I was executive vice president for global sales and marketing.
So what amazed me is, as we talked beforehand, I won't dwell on it, but I obviously grew up in Michigan. I went to U of M. That's why I'm wearing the Michigan hat. And my father was an executive for Chrysler a generation before you were there. He retired in the 70s. And his whole career was at Chrysler, 40 years. You know, maybe some of the guys that worked under him jumped ship in the 70s and went to the import companies. But pretty much you were a tried and true Ford guy, Chrysler guy, GM guy or something. You worked for all three and then some. That seems highly unusual. Is there I can't think of anybody else that had that kind of career.
Well, some of it was, I was good at what I do, which made me highly desirable. But on the other hand, I was often a pain in the butt and I think some of the job changes, I was like 2 steps ahead of the sheriff.
Okay, all right.
Before they decided I was more trouble than what I was worth.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, and you reminded me, and still do, of that generation of what we call car guys. I don't know if anybody outside of Detroit or Southern Michigan knows what a car guy is, but a car guy to me is somebody blunt, straight, and, let's not worry about cutting a penny or two. Let's not finding about how we're going to share platforms and all these other creative accounting tricks and production tricks and everything. How about making a good car that people want to buy? That was what seemed to be lost in the latter days of Chrysler, at least when my dad was there. And he was so proud to see what you guys brought back at Chrysler, not just turning it around and helping it survive, but to thrive and make it cool again. And I have to rattle off some of the cars that you were involved in shepherding or in shaping. I'm sure I'll leave off some of them here, but I just wrote down a couple here. We're talking about the BMW 3, the Ford Explorer, and then all those cars at Chrysler, the Prowler, the 300, and of course the Dodge Viper, and later a whole bunch of cars at GM, including the Chevy Bolt. That was one people thought, are we really going to go to electric cars here? So you've been involved in a lot of iconic car brands here. What made you, in between leaving Chrysler when it was sold to whatever, it went to Mercedes, I guess, or something, and in like the 90s, and then you were at Exide, is that what it was?
Exide batteries.
And I suspect, you don't have to say so, but that probably didn't serve your car guy passion enough, working for a parts supplier as opposed to a car. So at some point you came up with this idea to make your own car. This is like the late 1990s, 2000, somewhere right before you joined General Motors and came back as vice chair.
Right.
I get the idea. You've been involved in all these iconic cars. You've helped create them, design them, market them, sell them. Why not sell your own car? Why not? But you chose to try and bring back a car from the 1950s that was the subject of the story here, the Cunningham car. Why bring back a car? Why not make your own car? Why not make the Lutzmobile? I don't know if that's a
Well,
good brand, but
nobody really knows who Lutz is. A Lutzmobile doesn't have much cachet, but the name Cunningham was still remembered by automotive enthusiasts everywhere.
mhm.
And Cunningham had a great reputation. I had no interest in creating my own brand, but I was interested in creating a modern version of the Cunningham
Mhm.
as a four-passenger luxury coupe. That I found intriguing.
And what was it about this car? Because I confess, we're doing a series on the Singleton car collection here in Costa Mesa, bringing back what Briggs Cunningham pioneered. Another thing he pioneered for 20, 30 years, collecting cars and trying to show them to people and preserve them. This is back way before anybody thought anybody was interested in these things here. So, having said that, what is it about this Cunningham car that was so cool, cutting edge, and deserved to be brought
Well,
back?
you have to know I was always a Cunningham fan my whole life. I admired him, and very few people know that the idea of doing an aluminum-bodied sports car with a big American V8 was not invented by Carroll Shelby. It was done 12 years earlier by Briggs Cunningham.
Exactly.
And a lot of times when people look at my C4 Cunningham, they say, "Oh, this looks like a Cobra." I said, "No, the Cobra looks like this."
Exactly.
Because this was 1952, and the Cobras didn't come along until the 60s.
Yeah.
So I always saw brand Cunningham as sort of a pioneering brand. I also had the C3 Coupe,
Mhm.
which unfortunately went with the divorce, but my former wife does look after it and drive it in events. So
I had
it's
to
not
look down, sure, make sure we're capturing this. So she kept the coupe.
well,
Okay.
so I own two of them, and I forget who had the idea, but when I was approached to do a new generation of Cunningham for the very high-end market, sort of priced equivalent to Ferrari and Lamborghini, I was all for it.
Yeah. So somebody approached you, or you approached them? Was it something that you came up with and said, "I want to bring this back," or did somebody? Because I know you worked
So
with Briggs Cunningham's son. Yeah.
I think I was approached and asked if I thought it was a good idea.
Yeah. Okay. And you said yes because you were familiar with it. You knew the history of this car. Where along the way, and maybe this is just me, but I never heard of the Cunningham car. Maybe because I wasn't born until the 50s. But I wasn't aware of his legacy. So let's share with everybody for a moment who Briggs Cunningham was. I've got some notes here, but you start. Tell the story of what you recall of Briggs
Well,
Cunningham.
Briggs Cunningham was today we would call a trust fund baby.
Right.
He was very wealthy because his parents, I think, had a large slice of Procter and Gamble stock.
That's what I
that
read
they
here. He
acquired-
backed them when
acquired very early on.
he backed
Never
William
spent-
Procter and James Gamble when they developed a soap that floated.
Yeah, exactly. Well, at any rate, he was extremely wealthy, didn't have to work,
Right.
but devoted himself to sports and had the desire to put the United States on the map
Right.
in international sports.
And
So,
his two big
actually-
things were sailing, which he did win the
Yeah,
America's Cup later.
America's Cup, he won the America's Cup a couple of times for the U.S.,
Right.
and he also wanted to win the world's most prestigious automobile race, which is the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Yeah.
And he came very close. He placed third. It was at a time when Le Mans was really the purview of the Europeans. No
Yeah.
Americans ever showed up.
Well, because Le Mans, let's for people that don't know or haven't seen the movies from a million years ago about Le Mans. Le Mans isn't just about speed; it's about endurance, and it's
Sure.
about handling. It's about these tight little corners and curves and all that kind of stuff. It's not just a dragway or a bank track where you can crank it up and go as fast
No,
as you
it's
want.
definitely about endurance because the participants are basically under racing conditions for 24 full hours.
Right. So we've all seen the movie in the last few years, Matt Damon, about Carroll Shelby's and Henry Ford the Deuce second, who decided they were going to finally put an end to this. Were they inspired by? Did they ever admit that they were sort of inspired by or completing the journey that Briggs had started, or did they not acknowledge that?
Well, I think the motivation for the Ford GT40, which did the clean sweep of Le Mans, was the fact that Enzo Ferrari had snubbed Henry Ford when Henry Ford tried to buy Ferrari.
Right. That's what they said in the movie, right?
Very polite about it, and he deeply incensed Henry Ford II, which was not a smart thing to do.
Somebody you knew well, I'm sure, Henry Ford II. Yeah.
Yeah, and HF2, got even by beating Ferrari at Le Mans.
Right. So, I guess, and it wasn't the story I learned as I looked into this car in Briggs Cunningham's story, is it wasn't the first. Yes, that movie was made about the first victory, but they had Australians, didn't they have McLaren, Bruce McLaren driving or something as one of the two drivers. They didn't have Americans drive. It wasn't until the second time when Ford came. Ford swept like 2-3 years or 4 years after that, and it was the second year when they had Dan Gurney and A.J. Foyt. That's when the dream came true. An American driving an American car, beating the best in Europe. That was Briggs' thing. And the other thing is, it shocked me that after Briggs gave up racing himself, he did run some. He continued to run teams with the Corvette, with other things, and one of the people who raced for him was Dan Gurney. So he obviously knew of his passion to complete this dream here. So Briggs was a colorful guy. He was on the cover of Time magazine. Do you remember that? Because this is in the 50s. You must have been not a teenager, but you were a young man or something here in those days.
Well, in the 50s, I was in my 30s.
Yeah, okay, all right. So were you aware? You must have heard the stories and seen the challenge. We're going to take on the world. We're going to beat the best in Europe.
Yeah, sure. And, I was an avid reader of car magazines, Road and Track being the principal magazine of the day.
Right.
And that covered the Cunningham efforts and the Cunningham successes very thoroughly.
Right.
Of course, there was a great deal of nationalistic pride that went into the sentiment of Cunningham.
So he started, tell us the stories again. You were sharing this with me offline a little bit here. The first car he ran was a Cadillac, right? 49, I think.
Yeah.
And how do you run a Cadillac with the bubble top, the 49 Cadillac, my grandfather's car, with that you could sit inside and put your hat on? It wasn't exactly sleek and low to the ground here or something.
Yeah, no, they actually did well with that Cadillac.
And then he tried to come back the next year with something they called the Fordalac. He tried to jam a Ford and a Cadillac together and said, no, we're not buying this. It's got to be a production car. And that's when he had the idea, well, okay, what's a production car? They said, well, you got to make at least 25 of these things. That's what I'll do. And so to further his racing, he started making the Cunningham car in the early 50s. He was still focused on the race car versions.
Yeah, I mean, what he really wanted to do was race it. Le Mans let him run a number of times as a producer of one-off race cars because they were interested in having some American participation.
Right.
But after he almost won, that's when they suddenly decided that he needed to be a genuine producer. And they thought that by requiring that he be a genuine producer of automobiles, he would back out.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
They unfortunately miscalculated because Briggs Cunningham just said, okay, in that case, I'll start
making some cars. Now tell me about these cars that he made. This is a couple years before General Motors had come out with the Corvette. The Corvette came out in what, 53, 54, something like that?
Yeah, it was 52. The C-3 Cunningham came out in 52. Mine was a 53, but they used Chrysler Hemis.
Yeah, right.
And they came with a three-speed manual, and the bodies were by Vinales, and they looked like a Ferrari. They were slightly bigger.
But it seems, and I don't want to offend anybody who's a fan of Briggs Cunningham and the cars, because there's certainly a lot of them. When the car came out, I believe the director of the New York Museum of Art, I'd have to look it up here, he called it the most beautiful car ever made. It was
Well, I'd say
a
it's
wow car. Yeah,
that's a slight exaggeration, but it was well received aesthetically. And the problem with it was that because of the cost of the U.S. components being shipped to Europe
yeah.
and having a European body built on it and then shipped back to the United States, made them so expensive that they retailed for $10,000,
And
which,
this is when a Corvette was what, $3,000 or something.
yeah, 3 or 4.
Yeah. So it was a
Something.
considerably more. It seems almost like kind of, you know, not a serious project. But did he approach it seriously? Did he have a
I
sales
think he was
organization? And
I think he was hoping that he could at least break even,
yeah,
but at $10,000 a pop, he just wasn't selling very many.
and he made all of what I've read different numbers, 25, 27, something like that.
I think it was like 30 coupes and 4 convertibles,
Yeah,
or 27 coupes and 4
something like
convertibles.
that. And the amazing thing is, I was watching a thing. Jay Leno, of course, has one. Jay Leno said, and there's a big book he profiled about it. All these cars have survived. None of them got crushed or crashed. They all made it to modern times here. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think 1 or 2 of them have been destroyed, but they're for considering the small number that were built,
Yeah.
the survival rate is amazing.
And the final step was apparently in 54, 55, somewhere there, the IRS said, we're recategorizing your business. This is a hobby. You're not a manufacturer. You can't write off all these expenses. And that, he said, killed the whole deal here. So he did it for just a few years. He came pretty close. You told me an interesting story. At the best, he came in, I think, third, right, in like 53
Yep.
or something. And you told me, I'd never read this anywhere else. Tell me the story you told me beforehand, why he didn't win, why the Jaguars beat him.
Well, Jaguar had the first generation disc brakes, and the Cunningham C-3 was still running on drums. So with the Chrysler Hemi to over 300 horsepower, the Cunninghams were actually faster than the Jaguars, and on the Mulsanne straight,
Right.
the Cunninghams would go right by the Jaguars, but when they got to the end of the straight and started braking, the Jaguars could brake much later because they had superior brakes that didn't overheat.
Yeah, right.
So it was the endless play of Cunningham would pass the Jags on the straight, the Jags would pass the Cunningham going into the corners, and then stay ahead of the Cunningham on all the twisty parts
Right.
until they got to the big straightaway, where the Cunningham was run. So I said to the son of the winning driver, the son was kind of in classic car business, and I said, well, the only reason your dad beat the Cunninghams was because they had disc brakes.
Right.
That may be so, but it doesn't alter the fact that my dad won.
He won. Or we did it. We won. So here let's fast forward then 50 years later. You're in between. You're just starting or getting ready to start this big job at General Motors, vice chair, and you had already started exploring. I don't know how much that you want to tell me because I know some of it's kind of not a good story and a rough story of disagreements with the son, Briggs Cunningham's son, and battles back and forth and whatnot here. But you basically put up $1 million, as I heard. And
Well, I don't mind telling the story
Okay.
because it's true. What's he going to do? Sue me again?
yeah, well, I think he passed away a couple of years ago too here, so I think you're safe.
Well, what happened is Briggs Cunningham III and I each put in $1 million initially
Right.
to create styling models that were done out in California, and have Jack Ralphs done engineering evaluations and so forth.
Right.
So, and at the end of a year, he said he needed his $1 million.
He needed it back.
I said, well, you're one of the founders. You've got to put in $1 million.
Yeah.
I said, well, I just need somebody to buy me out. So I took another million, bought him out.
Right.
And I thought he'd go away happy.
Yeah, right. That should have been the end of the story. He got cold feet,
So,
he got his money back, and right.
Then I was hired by General Motors, and I told General Motors, I just agreed to be one of the founders of the Cunningham car company.
Right.
I put in basically $2 million.
Right.
And I can't leave all these people in the lurch.
Right.
Then CFO said, well, that's not a problem. General Motors will make an investment. And I said, okay, but we're into the B round.
Sure.
The A round was $1 a share.
Right.
Now it's $2 a share.
Right.
He said, that's fine. We'll put in $2 million. So they did. Briggs III found out about it. Said I was cheated out of $1 million. He said,
Wow.
no, Briggs weren't.
No.
Because you were an initial investor, a founder. And as we go for the second round, the price logically goes up.
Always. Yeah.
So, but I only got $1 from the shares. I think because you were a founder, you didn't
A
participate
seed
in
investor, an angel investor. Right.
and he never did understand it. He sued me, whatever state he's in, Georgia or Florida or
Right.
whatever. And the judge said, well, I can't rule on this because Mr. Lutz has never done business in this state.
Right. We don't have any jurisdiction.
But if I were asked to rule, I would find in favor of the defendant because, frankly, plaintiff doesn't have much of a case.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, that'll make it go away. But then he sued me in Michigan, and with an equally bad result. But it did destroy the company because we're also for raising a major amount of money, major by today's standards.
Yeah. But you said even you had some heavyweights like Bain Capital ready to go in and support.
Via Blair Capital.
Yeah.
Blair Capital
Blair.
was very.
And
Well,
they basically came back and said, if you guys are fighting, we're not going to invest here.
Yeah, well, the minute that story broke, Blair Capital said, we're not going to have anything to do with the company where the two founders are suing each other.
Yeah, right.
And I said, I totally understand that. So it's sad to say, but that was that effort. I think it could have been successful, and unfortunately,
It's a beautiful car. I will put a link to it. It's a very beautiful car. It's definitely, you can see the lineage of the Cunningham in it, but it was bigger than it's a bigger coupe, right? Talk about your car a little bit here.
well, it was, instead of being a two-seater, it was a 2+2.
Right.
So it was like the larger European Ferraris or Maseratis
Right.
had two seats, not very comfortable seats in the back. But
Would they call that a touring car or whatever? Is it? Would they call that a touring car, or is that something different?
Yeah, Grand Touring.
Right. Yeah.
Grand Touring.
All right. So you were going to do that, and you thought, what was the business plan like? How many you thought you were going to sell? What were they going to sell for? This is 2000.
Well, I think we were going to charge at the time around 100,000. To forget this was back in 2000, the year 2000.
Right.
So that was Ferrari, Mercedes, Lamborghini, and figured we could sell a couple of thousand a year.
Okay. And how were you going to make them? You going to build a factory? Jack Roush was going to somehow assemble
Well,
them
we
or
would
something?
start with Jack Roush, but ultimately we were going to need our own assembly plant.
Yeah. Right.
That's what the $50 million was for.
Right. So this sounded like it was all ready to go till Briggs Cunningham's son didn't quite understand hadn't ever built a business here.
He's an English professor.
Is that what he was? Okay. Yeah. So he didn't have the expertise here or the experience to understand like you have. Well, that's too bad. Any thoughts ever not at this age, I understand here, but did it ever come back again, or was that just a once and done thing here?
That was it. No further efforts.
Yeah. So you went on to a storied career again at General Motors and out there. What are you doing these days here? Yeah, I know. Am I allowed to say you're in your 90s here? I'm pretty impressed that you're remembering all these stories and everything here.
Well, I'll be 94 next week.
Well, Happy birthday. You said
Thank
you
you.
actually met Briggs Cunningham when
Oh,
he was in
absolutely.
his 90s. Tell us the story of that.
Well, it was a Chrysler event primarily to kind of celebrate both the Viper on the West Coast.
Right,
And we did it in Palm Springs in a luxury hotel. I couldn't tell you which one it was anywhere.
right.
But we had cleared out the parking lot and did sort of a small road course out in the
okay.
Briggs attended. We had a total collection of his cars, C4, C3s, C4R, C5, and so forth. And we were kind of drawing the parallel in the Cunningham cars and the Dodge Viper.
Right.
Not entirely illogical.
Yeah, right.
And it was a well-catered, upmarket event, so forth. And of course, the presence of Briggs Cunningham was a powerful drawing card for the specialized media. And I got to talk to him, and I was curious about some aspects of his background. And I asked him, Mr. Cunningham, why did you stop using Cadillac?
Yeah, because his very first car, he obviously ran with Cadillacs when he raced, tried to run, and then his very first car, the C1, I believe they used a Cadillac engine. Yeah.
Well, he had the so-called tank, or the monster.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was
monster that looked like
Le Monster, I think they called it. Yeah, they put a different body on it. Yeah.
That was Cadillac.
Right.
And when I said, "What caused you to stop using Cadillac engines?" he said, "Did I ever use Cadillac engines?"
Didn't even
So I
remember,
realized his memory was slipping a little bit. He was showing early signs of dementia.
Right.
But when we looked at a Cunningham C-5, which was a much more sophisticated car,
Right.
never quite as successful, but technologically much more sophisticated, we opened on that thing. He remembered every detail, every decision they made, every element they changed off of the earlier times. I mean, it was amazing. It was like total recall.
Wow. Just suddenly it switched back on here. Because you
But
said he actually cranked that. The story I read was that Cadillac, for some reason, wasn't too enthusiastic about giving him any more engines.
No, they weren't.
And so he went to, this is in one of the stories I found here, I don't know if this is anecdotal or true, but he went to Yale with K.T. for a semester or two, and he met K.T. Kelleher's son, who was at that time the president of Chrysler, and they had just come out with this new, what they call it, the Firepower V8 engine here. And they were eager to promote that, so they eagerly embraced giving him that, and that's what he went to Chrysler engines.
It was the first Hemi.
Oh, it was, okay. Yeah,
it was a Hemi. It was the 331 Hemi.
Yeah. And was anybody shocked? Because you said there was one person that had done it before, but basically, it seems like if not for Briggs, before there was Carroll Shelby, there was Briggs Cunningham. Is that too harsh of a statement here?
That's
he came first.
But he was not the first person to combine an American V8 with a European chassis.
Right.
That had been done before.
But he was the first to sort of promote this and push it and take it and run it and do all this. I mean, he
and he was the first American to do it.
Oh, okay. Okay. So he really set the pattern for sticking a big V8 in a little car. He set the standard. He thought he could take on the best in Europe by himself. And if I got to build 25 cars to get there, I'll do it, which seems kind of a fool's errand in retrospect here. But he almost did it. And then for many years kept running and racing, switching to Corvettes. I think he's in the Corvette Hall of Fame, oddly enough. And then he decided when he stopped running cars, he was going to collect cars. Was anybody? I guess I thought everybody was collecting cars, but he got some great cars for pennies on the dollar in the 60s and 70s because nobody thought, who's going to want these cars? Let's just crush them, throw them away here. Who wants to go see these things? And for many years, for 20 years here in Orange County, he had a museum, and they say you could come down and see him here, and he and his wife were, selling tickets, and they'd show you around the collection, and it was kind of a mom and pop operation. This great guy, this great pioneer on the cover of Time magazine, and he's running this little car museum trying to get people to pay attention to these things and remember them. That's what the Singletons are doing, Will and Carrie, these days. They're trying to revive that spirit, an American car museum, just American cars, remembering, restoring, and eventually, right now it's not totally open to the public. It will be, I believe, at some point in time. They're just building out the building and everything. It's open private tours and stuff. They've got about 100 cars. And one of them, when we said, well, let's do a series about this, let's talk about it, they said, you got to talk about the Cunningham. And I'm like, what is the Cunningham? And then as I dig into it, I find out one of the most famous car executives that I grew up admiring and watching and seeing, and one saying, wow, look at all the things you did. You tried to bring back the Cunningham. So I think this is an amazing story that's time to be told. Is it ready for another movie here? Forget about Ford versus Ferrari. Is it Briggs against the world here?
Yeah. Why not?
Why not? I think that's the next film we're going to see. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today. It's been a real pleasure to have you explain the history of why you chose to bring back this car, how you tried to bring it back, what happened to it, and last question, what happened to the one car? Was it a fully operational prototype, or was it just like a concept car?
It was what industry parlance is called an inside-outside fiberglass. So it was made out of fiberglass. It had glass, and it had a full interior. So to look at it, you'd swear it was a new car.
Yeah, right.
And because Jack Rouse's bills were never paid,
okay,
to keep the car.
Because you put up $2 million, the first million and another million here. I thought that would be in your car collection here, right?
So Jack Rouse has that one in his collection.
Oh my goodness, well, we got to get that one back in your collection. Do you have a collection? I'm assuming you have some
efforts on the part of the what's the big museum in Los Angeles?
The Peterson Museum. Yeah.
Yeah, they've been trying to get it on loan, but so far I think Jack has been unresponsive.
Well, we'll see if we can put a little pressure on him here with our collection of people here, and we got some connections here. So,
yeah,
all right. I'd love to see it in real life. I'd love to talk more about all this stuff here. It's a pleasure. Of all the iconic cars that you were part of, the one that I never expected to hear was the Cunningham car. I'm not sure people at the museum knew this whole story before here. So it's It's the perfect ending to what was kind of a fairy tale journey from the beginning. Before there was Carroll Shelby, before there was Ford versus Ferrari, there was a guy named Briggs Cunningham who didn't want to just be a playboy. I guess he was a little bit of a playboy, but he really wanted to be a sportsman and to use
that's what it was.
Yeah.
But he put his fortune to good use.
Yeah, exactly. To further American cars and American interest, and he lit the fuse, I guess. Maybe I'm overstating it, that others a decade later finally completed for him. He started it. Well, thanks so much. I think everybody should see the car. It's a spectacular car. It didn't really have it. Last question: did the Cunninghams have anything unique about them in terms of? It was certainly designed, but they were really just using Chrysler parts or Ford parts or other sorts of things here. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was just a very good blend of components.
Yeah, right.
So they
weren't doing anything revolutionary in terms of under the car there, but
they were also super lightweight.
Oh, were they? Okay.
My Cunningham C-3 has 400 horsepower. It's got an original 331 heavy, and it weighs just over 2,000 pounds.
Wow.
So.
And what was an average car in 1953 weighing? Double that.
5,500.
Yeah,
6,000 pounds.
4,000 or 5,000 pounds at least, exactly here.
Yeah.
Well, I hope someday to meet you if I ever make it back to my alma mater here. I don't know if you ever make. I don't know if you're still traveling. If you ever make it out to the West Coast, but we'd love to show you the Cunninghams out here. And we'd love to do more. Maybe we've got to bring this story back to life because I think too few people remember it. That's why we're doing this special all about it. Thank you so much for joining us here.
You're doing your part, Paul. Thank you very much.
We're trying. We're trying to save this here. So stay on the line. Don't hang up. I have a couple questions for you afterwards. Hang on here.
All right. Good deal.